है बादा मस्त बादा आशा में अहमदियत चलता है दौर मीना ओ जाम अहमदियत.
MashaAllah. Tiga boys, I think we'll get started because there's another program after this, inshallah. To Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Jazakallah everyone for joining. So I was been busy writing a speech. Got a talk later on. Alhamdulillah, we've got a few deputies and mayors coming in for today's peace symposium. But inshallah, we'll start off a really interesting topic today. It's about racism. And inshallah, Qasim will firstly give a small presentation on the news, and then we'll start talking about this really important topic. So if you guys have anything to say or any points you want to add about racism, please think of them now so we can have a nice conversation about it later. And then we also have, inshallah, Sabur Tahir will also be coming in, who's of Ghanaian background, talking about his experiences in the UK and his take on racism as well. But before that, I'll just hand it over to Qasim. Assalamu alaikum, Qasim.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Sorry for coming in late. I was talking to my grandfather. Yeah. Wait. Oh, no, not wrong thing. There it is. All right. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to this week's K News. We have 30 slides to cover, so let's get into it. Also, you have an update 2x1. I have now started organizing my presentation slides. Now it's easier for me to make news. UK news. I actually forgot to update these. Sorry. So we'll skip to schools. Huge surge in number of pupils sent home due to COVID. Estimated about 640,000 children have been sent school, and which is a lot, and it's really serious. And it has hit a new high in March this year. Johnson, Whitty, and Valence on when they'll still wear face masks. So face masks will no longer be legally required at the final stage of England's COVID lockdown. Boris Johnson has confirmed. However, Whitty and Valence have provided kind of scenarios where they would still wear masks. So even after the restrictions are lifted, people are still urged to wear masks even if necessary. Straight into sports news. The final match is set to be held at Wembley Stadium 11 July, and it'll be England versus Italy. It's coming home. England wins. Last match, England wins a shocking victory. So, congratulations. Oh, also back to year 21. Spain has dominated the leaderboards. I mean, you can already see it's top for most of the things: possession, goals, accuracy. With Denmark being a close second place, and ironically, we just beat Denmark. Also, just a weird thing: Italy only has about 3 spots, so it has second for tackles and balls removed. So there's still hope. So for anyone who still thinks Italy gonna win, there's still hope for England. Also, forgot to change picture. Roger Federer says he really doesn't know if he'll play at Wembley Stadium again after losing to Poland's Hubert Hurkacz in the quarterfinals. He actually lost to Hubert in the tennis tournaments, and he in fact is the oldest tennis player, and he has set the record for the oldest tennis player playing in tennis. Laurel Hubbard becomes the first transgender athlete to compete at Olympics. Now, with the reasons behind this, as we all know, women and males and females are built very differently, and we have different testosterone levels, which can actually affect how you play and how you kind of work out and how you do it. So it has been a very challenging thing. But in a controversial decision, New Zealand's Lauren Hubbard has become the first transgender to actually be able to compete in men's weightlifting in the weightlifting challenge, and she's allowed to compete if her testosterone levels are below the certain threshold. Science news. Clouds of Venus simply is too bright to support life. Scientists have detected 2 collisions between. Oh wait, no. So with this, the Venus, as we all know, is the hottest planet in the solar system. We have like, and also its atmosphere is very, very dry. We have little to no water, and it's mostly gases, methane gases. What sparked this interest is they found a phosphorine, which is a gas. It's pH 3, which in fact is a very toxic gas and can cause death. However, scientists looked at extremophiles. Now, extremophiles, for those who might not know what it is, are basically extreme cases of organisms. So you have bacteria living in space, which I previously mentioned. We also have bacteria living in Antarctic, which we have to say because it's really, really cold. We also have thermophiles, which are bacteria living in very, very high temperatures. There's even, I believe, bacteria found in nuclear plants. So these are what's called extremophiles. And they were testing on extremophiles, seeing if they have the potential to support life in Venus. But what they found is that even extremophiles cannot survive in the atmosphere of Venus. So it's inhabitable. Mars, on the other hand, has a different scenario. India has discovered a new plant species in Antarctica, and it's a new moss species. It's the part of the Byram genus, which is a class of mosses. So this provides a lot of potential of whether it can one live in really cold places and could be useful in the future. Climate change, US, Canada heat are virtually impossible without warming. And yeah, in space news, the Prospero is a quest to retrieve a 50-year-old UK space debris. So there was a 66-kilogram spacecraft sent to space and to measure environment in space, and they're thinking of way of bringing it back. And it was launched from Australia in 1971. It's defunct now, but it's still circling around the globe and some 1,000 kilometers up, and there are plans for bringing it down. Obviously, it's very hard to bring it down because first they have to think about the air resistance. They also have to think about the heat friction that's going to be caused. And the best case scenario, even they're saying that they're not going to be able to retrieve the whole aircraft, maybe just parts of it. Entertainment news. In Denmark, I think we know why Denmark lost, because they were too focused on making sandcastles, and they've completed and made the biggest sandcastles, and it's just over 21 meters tall, and it took over 30 different architects and engineers to build this sandcastle in the town of Blokhus in Denmark. And it will be staying for about a year until it's taken down. Oh, so it's about 6,000 tons of sand that's used to build. But I think now we know why Denmark lost. BAFTA nominated young game designers to take on real world issues. So young video games are incorporating the big issues that matter to them into game design. So what BAFTA is a British gaming, British nomination kind of system where they nominate best games of the year. And in fact, these times we have quite a lot of children who have been nominated because of how they have designed their characters and games and implemented real world issues into those games. And these are like 14 years old, 15 years old. Donald Trump and his spicy shenanigans. Trump sues Twitter, Google, Facebook with alleging censorship. And former US President Donald Trump has filed a lawsuit against tech giants Google, Twitter, and Facebook, claiming that he's a victim of censorship. So obviously this reflects to the riot Capitol and the fact that his Twitter account was taken down because of the comments he made. And he's, and he's kind of protesting the rights to free speech and saying that it's not freedom of speech, it's going against his morals. UK Shorelines, UK now has a new museum and new art. Sicily boats runs aground and balances a two rock. The motorboat was left perched precariously on rocks after running around. The 47-feet boat was stranded off notorious T Ledges rocks east of Tresco on the Isles of Sicily on Thursday. The two fishermen on it left the boat in fear of getting sued for damaging art. So discussion news. This is the one we'll be waiting for. I'll just share this link. Can everyone see this? Can you see this?
Yes, Qasim, we see it. Exactly.
Assalamu alaikum, Ya Hizur. My question is that racism has been extremely normalized over the years. What are beloved Hizur's opinions on this, and how should racist comments be handled?
When you are clapping, you cannot clap with one hand. You have to use the other hand. The fault is from both sides. Those who are immigrants to these Western countries, those migrants did not try to integrate themselves in the society. And apart from that, most of them do not work. And if they work, they do not pay taxes, right? And they try to isolate themselves from local people, right? And when these local people say that you are not integrating yourself in their society with them, and you are also getting benefits from the government, from the tax they pay, then that makes them get annoyed, right? So this is why those people, those leaders who have some, ill will about the immigrants or do not like immigrants, they are trying to incite the general public. This is why racism is increasing. If the immigrants try to integrate themselves within the society, then you can remove the doubts of local people. So it does not mean that you dress yourself as they dress. It does not mean that you go to the clubs and start taking alcoholic drinks. It does not mean that you dance in their clubs. It does not mean that you lose your morals. But at the same time, if they realize that these immigrants are beneficial for our society, they are participating in the betterment of the country, they're trying to improve the economy of the country, then they will not raise such type of questions. And at the same time, when we are interacting with these people, we can remove their doubts as well. I have seen so many people who come to see me when I explain what the Islamic teaching is and how should we behave, and if we are wrong, then obviously you will raise questions against us. But if we are helping you, then why should you raise any question or having any ill will with regards to immigrants? So we have to work hard on it. See, you tell your friends that we are trying to be part of the nation. And you tell them that this is our belief, that the country in which we are living in is our country. And it is the saying that the love of your country is part of your faith. So we love our country. So in this way, you will have to work hard and try to explain everything to your fellow students instead of keeping yourself isolated and distant from the local people, mixed with them. But keep in mind that you are not going to lose your morals and your teaching your faith when you are going to mix with them. Okay? So I have spoken on this issue on some of my addresses. Ask your Sadr Sahaba to find out those excerpts, the specific particular excerpts of those speeches and give it to you. That will satisfy you. Okay?
Jazakallah.
So here, my point is, I mean, it's a really good point with racism. It's not just one-sided issue. It comes on two sides, especially as us MD. If we are to remove the doubts about MDs and all the beliefs, we have to actually preach them and get like mix in their society while not losing our morals. So what does everyone else thinks about this?
Amr, you got anything to say first?
Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome.
How's it going? TikTok and Rabisa?
Alhamdulillah, nice to hear your voice again.
Yeah, I know it's been a while.
Yeah. How are you doing?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. I was going to say I agree. It does work both ways. I mean, I've personally experienced it on both sides as well. So I'll give you like a personal example where one of my cousins, he came from Europe, but sort of Pakistan as well. So he was in Europe for like a year or two, and then he came to the UK, and sometimes it can be something very small, you know, like why are people like this, or I don't like this type of food. But then I sort of actually talked to him quite openly to explain that, you know, there's a reason why you came here, but you also have to integrate and understand, you know, the ways, like people that were born into this country, we sort of know that. But when you're coming from outside, I think people just don't educate themselves enough. Eventually, a lot of them get around it. I think, you know, either just naturally because their kids start going to school, or they get to know more people, they start working, etc. But sometimes you do see that gap within, you know, Asian community. It's quite common. So I definitely do think it works both ways. And likewise, if we go abroad, we can have a certain mindset. Like, for example, us born in the UK, we can think Pakistan is so and so. But that's, you know, you still need to understand not everything is bad. Not everyone is bad. It's, you know, it takes a bit of time to understand that, and it's mutual. And I'm not saying that's necessarily for racism, but I think there's an element to it. And it can build, racism can build from small things like that accumulating.
Yeah. I think it's a brilliant point, Huda, Jazakallah for sharing that. So racism, immigration, you know, all ties in to one topic. And for me, it was just quite fascinating for Zur to, instead of, you know, defending racism in sense of, you know, you shouldn't do it, he's more taking the stance of actually look at the reason why it's happening, and ask yourselves, am I the cause of it happening? Am I actually benefiting society? These guys, this country has allowed us, you know, probably all of us, if not us, then our parents, not our parents, then, you know, our grandparents or great grandparents, so have come and settled here, you know, and live with their religious freedom. You know, in a way, you know, we are given this opportunity to live this comfortable life as we are. So always, it's a great point to always try and give back, and don't give them any reason to show any racism to us. But at the same time, I remember beloved Huzur, once he was addressing, I think it was either on national level or Ijtima or something, and it was in an English speech. But towards the end, Huzur suddenly switched to Urdu, and he started talking to all the immigrants that have come to this country from Pakistan and telling them that, you know, one of the reasons you have come here is because you have come on asylum, because you claim that your country isn't giving you religious freedom. So when you come here, you know, instead of showing that loyalty to the country and thanking them, you go the total opposite way. And on the other hand, you basically cause more of a damage to society. So I thought that was quite powerful for Dhur to address that, especially in Urdu, and tell them that, you know, this is how you should behave when you come to this country. There's certain roles and certain rules that you have to follow to be able to live by it. And I think this is one of those things that if you don't do it, then this is the result of it. You know, you're pushing people to abuse you, pushing people to say hurtful things to you. So definitely the prevention is better than cure. And so we should always try to prevent any harm by, you know, being the best that we can be as well. Is there anything anyone else that has anything to say on this. Hamza, you're quite opinionated. If you have anything to say on racism, any points that you'd like to make, please. If you're there. Me? John.
Sorry, I was just away from my laptop.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I think it's just echoing what Hazur said, really. In any takeaway from racism, if there's a falling out between two parties, whether it's friends, family, there's usually shortcomings on both parties. And usually, if you have big egos involved or people with big personalities, you always see the shortcoming in the other party, and you see they've done this wrong, they've handled it badly in this way. But I think that's human nature. We always like to see the bad in others, and we want to see the best. We want to see ourselves in the best light possible. But sometimes you have to swallow your pride and reflect and think, where could I have maybe done something better? And obviously, no one deserves racism. I'm not saying that. But is there any more that we can do, as I said, to integrate, to serve and help humanity, to help our country more? And I think reflecting on maybe where we could do more will help. It can't do any, worst case, it can't make things any worse. It can only do good if you think, oh, no one deserves racism. So it's, I think, just self-reflection and seeing where you can do more and integrate more, sort of thing.
Do you think with recent events that have happened, especially around the world, the way people are tackling it, do you think it's coming to any effect? For example, like in football, how they take the knee for 8 seconds. I know people are saying that, it's not really curing racism, but at least it's keeping the conversation going. Do you think things like this are good? Do you think it should carry on going? Or
I think so long as it's done in a peaceful manner, crack on. So long as it's not, it's not violent. It's not like those protests or things with riots where people's property gets damaged and people get hurt. So long as it's in a peaceful manner, I don't think there's anything wrong in it. How much impact it's having, I'm not entirely sure. But I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with it so long as it's in a peaceful manner.
Yeah, I think the people doing it as well, especially taking the knee, they know themselves that it's not going to really do anything. But at least it's, we're sitting here today, we're still talking about it. And if they stop doing it,
awareness, isn't it? Raising awareness. Yeah,
it's raising awareness, and that's I think Raheem Sterling was talking about it in an interview, and he said they asked him, like, do you think it's helped in any way? He said honestly that I don't think it's done anything, because it's still happening. If they lose, they're still expected to get abuse. But at least they're raising awareness, as you said, which is the main thing. I think people, we always say that you should always go back to religion and see what religion teaches and how it was practiced. And the Holy Quran has made it clear that Allah Ta'ala says that, O mankind, we have created you from a male and female, and we have made you into tribes and sub-tribes, that you may recognize one another. Verily, the most honorable among you in the sight of Allah is he who is most righteous among you. Surely Allah is all-knowing and all-aware. That's beautiful, isn't it? Because it's basically telling us that it doesn't matter what color or creed you come from. When you return back to Allah, you're all going to be the same. And that's what the Holy Prophet ﷺ said in one of his last messages to his people, is that make sure you treat everyone well before you return back to Allah. Because when you return back to Allah, all of your things will be shown to everyone. And it doesn't matter if you think in the world, if you thought you were better than anyone, but I made everyone equal. I made everyone one. So treat everyone as one. And I think that was a really beautiful message by the Holy Prophet that probably everyone can live by. But yeah, going back to the topic, Hamza, do you think have you ever experienced racism? I know we live in quite a mixed area, especially Warsaw. Quite a mixed background. But have you ever seen it? Have you ever seen anyone go through it?
It's weird. Nothing proper springs to mind, to be honest. Maybe subtly, but not overtly. Maybe like the looks you get from people in certain areas going through Birmingham, but nothing like really like in your face sort of thing.
That's interesting, because I don't know, Huda would know, but we live down south in Islamabad. We lived in quite a white area, didn't we? So
yeah, completely white.
Yeah.
I can tell you incident about myself. And I think in racism, the most common sentence they use it is to go back to your country.
Yeah.
That's very things come out. First, I'm just going to tell you about how the people react when they don't like somebody. And then when they don't like someone, culture or color or something, the first thing they're going to start hating you. And when you come across with the people who are a racist, the first kind of thing is just, he just got heat up with you. The second thing, the word's going to come out is from mouth, is to go back to your country. You don't belong there. Yeah. Or they call you swearing. A pretty common one is, because mostly people come from Pakistan or they've been born here. Color is pretty much the same. So they call it like, you know, the Paki things. So I've been called a few times in this situation.
You know what you should do in this case is just tell them, I will go back, I will take all my chicken curry and rice with me then.
Yeah. or they call you, I don't know.
How did you feel when you were being called names and like?
First I was just for a few seconds I was just froze. I don't know what to do. Yeah, and rather than provoking him, I just walked off.
Yeah,
and I said, "There's no point because he's a racist man. So if I stay here, he's gonna kick off. There's no point."
Yeah.
So I just walk off. That's was that. So it just felt like, you know, you don't belong to here. This is not your country.
Yeah.
You know. But the thing is that, like you said about the work thing, when you are working, they say, "Oh, you're taking over a job." So when you're not working, they're not working, they're taking benefits. So what should you do? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's quite different. Situation is quite different. I mean, and the police won't do much about it. I mean, to be honest, unless, you know, there are strong witnesses or some violence involved in society, or then they'll probably just take some action.
Yeah.
But it has seen in recent years racism and hate crimes. I think they do interlink some point, and the hate crime has risen in recent years, and it's mostly towards the ethnic minorities.
Yeah.
So the counter argument to that though is if you go to an Asian or the minorities country, for example, if you turn it on its head, they do the same to the other side. If you think about it, it's because we live in this country, we all feel that it's the other way around. But if, say, for example, you live in Pakistan or something like that, or anywhere else that has a different race or different culture, they will typically say similar things about the other side. And it can be, it's always interesting. It's always, I don't know, it's a very difficult subject, because for me, like, racism, understand what it is, because it's based on ethnicity or color, right? But equally, in society, there's other barriers or, you know, issues that are basically racism, but in a different form. Whether that's, you know, someone's, you know, the way they live, or cleanliness, their sex, or whatever it is. And it's quite common nowadays, you know, like, you know, do we accept every type of person? You know, they were talking about the Euros, where Germany wanted to make their Munich stadium the rainbow color, for example, and UEFA said, we don't get involved in any politics. Yeah. So, I mean, where do you draw the line in this sort of thing? You know, racism is ethnicity and color. That's just one angle. But there's so many other things that happen, and it can be our own people. You know, even within just Pakistani culture, there's differences. You know, there's people that are born in this country, and then there's people that come from outside in. Some adapt really well, others don't. And sometimes that can be a natural issue as well. So Yeah, I guess I'm just giving some, you know, different views on the subject. You know, it's quite easy for us to say that it happens here, but I bet you it happens to the white person going to the other country.
Yeah, I think the first point you made, I think it goes back to what Azur said, really. You can't really clap with one hand. And, you know, not everyone is bad. That's what we have to remember. And this is the point I wanted to make when Asif was talking. And Huda, I was mentioning to you as well, when we're in Wading in school. I don't think you were in school at the same time. You're a bit older than me. When I was in year 7, we were playing football up on the hill. It was just us Islamabad guys who were playing with our English friends. And one guy just came. Still remember his name, remember his face as well. But he came and kicked our ball away. And then we were like, why'd you do that? And he told us, he said he called us different names, Pakistani names. And you guys go back to your country. And that was actually our first experience of racism throughout my whole life up to that point. I never really experienced it. Even though I'm not Pakistani myself, I felt like, I feel offended in some way. And this guy's telling us to go back to our country. But what I wanted to make is I don't think the majority of people are like that. I think it's a very minute people. If you take the school, for example, there's only one person saying that. And out of that one person, even his own friends were against him for saying it. And just the way our school handled it, and the way our school dealt with it was amazing to see. They cracked down on it straight away. They made people, know that we don't tolerate racism at all in our school. And they even suspended that student, and nothing happened to us. So for me, it was an eye opener to see that, wow, these people are really accepting of our culture, of our color as well, and they don't judge us for it. So it was quite amazing to see that. But it made me realize as well that we need to be careful wherever we go, because we don't know what people are thinking about us. So we always need to be wary of that and not provoke them to say anything, because the majority, like I said, the majority of people wherever we go will be tolerable and will understand, because the UK is so multicultural now that's almost it's impossible to be openly racist to someone. And for the people that are doing it, they're always going to be in the minority, hopefully, and that's all we can really do, really. Yeah, Abid, if you want to say something. You want to say something?
Yeah, as you already said, that it's very diverse in the UK. Many nationalities, many races are living here, but it still comes down to educating all the people that racism does exist. Tell your children as well that you will face racism, but how you should tackle it. Like in school, you will get it. I have lived in Germany for 12 years, and I used to live in a place where only 2 brown people used to live. Right? Only 2 brown families were there, mine and one of my friends. That's it. And the rest was white people, Russians. And in school, they used to look at you in such a way as Huda Bhai was just saying that, Asif Bhai was saying that, okay, they have this in their eyes saying that, okay, go back to your country, you don't belong here. You do feel inferior to them as a child. You're thinking like you are 5-6 years old, and it's constant in your mind. What would you say to that child to overcome racism? That's my thing, that how to educate your child to tackle racism if it does come towards you.
Can I?
Yeah, go for it, Qasim.
I mean, literally, as Azul literally mentioned, everyone just said, like, people say, go back to your country. And obviously, as Jesus said, this is because we don't try to engage in the society. We don't participate and we don't realize. So a good way for someone, I would say, to tackle the racism is to engage in society, attend events, show them that you actually belong here. Just as Azur said.
Qasim,
only then you can tackle racism. Well, yeah, that's one way. But
yeah, let me intercept with that. Okay, you are doing everything. You are attending your school events. You're attending your local events. You're going to places you are required to go. you do everything as a resident should do, as a local resident. But they still look at you as you're not part of their society.
There's also the aspect of praying to Allah as well while doing all this. And even if all this isn't working, you could still pray to Allah and ask for his prayer and then still continue to do it.
I think one of the best things is, as Zuru says, is becoming a model to society. And a lot of things that our friends will say is that I don't know many Muslims, but the Muslim that I do know is this, and he's an Ahmadi Muslim. And from his conduct, I see that they are very good people. And I have a friend who actually said that to me once. He said, I don't believe in any religion, but if I was to follow one, I'd follow what you guys follow, because I've seen how you guys act and behave. And I know just from knowing you that everything that's being said on the media, it's all totally wrong and it's all false news about your religion. So, you know, one of the greatest things that we can always do to tackle it is just by, you know, following Islam as it should be. And the people, you don't know who's going to be seeing you, you don't know who's going to be observing you, analyzing how you are, but that will ultimately make them decide whether, you know, you're a good person or a bad person in their opinion. Yeah, Jazakallah. I think we'll do one more point. Sabur just joined in, so Sabur, will quickly go to you now. So we're talking about racism, we're talking about you know, experiences that people have had and how to tackle it. It'd be good to get also your opinion and your view on it, seeming as you're from obviously an African background, and maybe you've probably had experiences of it in the UK as well. Sabur, if you can. I know you're probably driving, but yeah. Nice. Alaikum salam.
Yeah, I just got home and I was at a fault, you know, getting and joining properly rather than driving and talking.
Yeah, wicked. Jazakallah.
Alaikum. Been a while since I've been part, but just been busy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so racism is something that, you know, obviously we all, you know, have basically experienced or seen or witnessed. And me being, you know, Black and obviously African background and being in the UK is something that I've personally actually experienced. And it's just something, well, my personal experience is, it was actually at work, which, you know, something that you wouldn't never had thought of, but after working a long time with people like that, you know. But mine was, you know, during the protest of Black Lives Matter in London, I think it was last year summertime, and after the killing of George Floyd, so I went to work, and basically I was off 3 days before, so I went to work the following day, only to see a picture of a black guy printed out, and he was being harassed by police. So that picture was basically put on the cabinet at work, and they wrote my name to it, you know. And it was something, I walked in straight away, I saw that, I could not believe it. So how I dealt with it was something else, you know. It's just, first I rang my wife in it because I was thinking to go back home, you know, that morning after going to work. I was just thinking, you know what, I might as well just go home, because after a long time working these people, this is what they see me as, you know, just another black guy with police, you know, being harassed by police, pinned down, you know, feet up and everything. So I rang my wife, I told her, you know what, this is what I've just experienced at work, and I'm thinking of coming home and whatnot. So we spoke for a bit. She was just like, you know what, stay calm. If you leave work, they'll probably just, you know, gain what they want, really. So you stay calm and whatnot. So I listened to her, and after that, she obviously advised me, you know, if you can call dad as well and speak to dad. So I called my dad, and I was speaking to my dad. I was saying, I've just been to work, and they printed a picture of a black guy protesting Black Lives Matter in London, and they put it up in the office at work, like, and they were making fun of it, that, this is Abdul, you know, this is Abdul Sabur, like, he's here, he's in London, blah, 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 he's protesting, and he's being harassed by police, pinned down. So my dad was like, you know what, first and foremost, stay calm, even though it's something that is very bad, you know. And what my dad said to me was, just ask the lady, which he like this was done by my manager, you know. Person I've been working with for 5 good years. She see me. This is how she's been seeing me for that length of time that we've been working with. I've been working with her for. So she turns around. My dad said to me that, just said to her that your religion practice forgiveness, and you're gonna forgive her, but in that forgiveness, you want her to understand that what she done is wrong, that she could lose her job by that, and she could never get any job whatsoever, because racism and hate crime is, you know, obviously, like I said, is a crime. And my dad said, just say to her, Islam teaches forgiveness, and at this moment, this is a time for me to basically express my faith and my beliefs to these people, because at the end of the day, that's what the Prophet did. That's what the Prophet came to show to people, you know, by Hazrat Bilal. He gave me the example of Hazrat Bilal, how, you know, he was being treated, but once he accepted Islam, he forgave a lot of people. And I was just listening to that, right? And I remember speaking to him, I got teary, because you can imagine how beautiful Islam is. If it was anyone that was not a Muslim, or any Muslim for that matter, they would have escalated this and they would take it somewhere else. But luckily for me, I had my wife, my mom, my family basically, that just guided me and spoke to me, you know, just ask her to apologize to you for what she's done, and, you know, we're going to leave it there. And I asked her, I told her everything. She could not believe it. She was so overwhelmed. She's like, oh my days. So you're not going to take it any further? I'm like, listen, my religion teaches me not to. Once I forgive, that's it. I can't go back on it. So I've forgiven you. All I want from you now is for you to write me a letter of an apology. That's what my dad said to say to her. A letter of apology saying that you have apologized, and we've got proof of you being offensive to me by, you know, causing me this harm and hurt. And she was crying, man. Like she could not stop crying, because that was when she realized what she had done. And at that moment, for me, showing her what Islam teaches, she felt overwhelmed, and she was like, oh my, she could not believe it, that I'm actually, you know, forgiving her, not, you know, taking it further up, which I could have done. And most of my guys at work are saying, you know what, report her to the HR, get her sacked, this and that. And now when I was saying that to her, like, I'm like, listen, at the end of the day, right, I know you've got mortgage to pay, I know you've got bills to pay, I'm not gonna be happy to see you lose your job. And that's not exactly the teachings of Islam. So just a letter of, you know, forgiveness would be all right. And that she wrote me a letter of apology. I showed it to my dad, my wife, my mom, and everyone basically in the family, saying that this is what happened at work. My family basically comforting them, just like, oh, you're right, you know, hope, you know, it doesn't take, you know, obviously, because people get like really offended, and it can take a different turn. But my family was very supportive, man, when that happened. And that was the first time for me experiencing it like hands-on at workplace. I've experienced it at uni, but at workplace is just different, because I've worked there. Uni was 3 years, and I knew most of the teachers were racist anyway, because we'd be in a group of, they put you in groups, right? And what would happen is that you both did the same assignment, and literally what you done is what you put down on paper that you've done this, right? But our white counterparts will get better marks than us. So which reflected on, you know, all of that, you know, establishment, what was going on at uni. But this was just something else, that these people I've worked with for such a long time see me as different, someone else, like, you know, it really hurt. But obviously speaking to my family really comforted me in the example of Hazrat Bilal, and, you know, teachings of the Prophet Muhammad and the Khulafa and everything, man. It's just like, it helped me calm down, and alhamdulillah, man, it was it was dealt with in that manner.
I think, Sabur Jazakallah, I think it's such an amazing example of a control of emotion, because I think that's what engulfs the world, is the emotional side of, especially what happened to George Floyd, and maybe putting emotions before thought, and not thinking about the result of their actions. But with you, I think you were able to control it, and you're able to look for the right answers before you took action. And alhamdulillah, you had your dad there to guide you in such an amazing way. So Jazakallah, I think it's a great way. I think maybe if you're a bit younger, you may have reacted in a different way. But because you,
like back then, back, London days and whatnot, right? It was even different, you know what I mean? But obviously, we've grown up having reading kids, and having dad support and family support is just something that I sort of cherish now. I could have, like you said, acted differently there and then, but comported myself.
Yeah, that's the thing. Why lose out yourself, reacting in the wrong way when you can react in the right way and just benefit from the situation?
Exactly, because what they don't really know is like teach, because these people they're backwards. Everything, the establishment, the foundation of the country is systemic racism, and it's always going to be there. But it's up to us to basically show them other ways by showing the teachings of Islam and portraying it in an exemplary way that I felt they can understand that, what, we all one, really. It's just we all got one, blood, and it's red.
Yeah.
Different colors.
It's true, man. It's true. Jazakallah. Jazakallah, Sabur. Guys, we're running really short on time, but it's been such a fantastic conversation. We've talked about, experiences from a Pakistani point of view, African point of view, and every other color that we can think of. So brilliant. Jazakallah, guys, for sharing your experiences. Inshallah, we're going to try more focusing on discussion topics on the weekly basis, because really nice hearing all of your voices. So if we do send out a topic, just think of a few points. So it's good to hear from everyone. So Jazakallah Huda, Qasim, and everyone for contributing, and Hamza as well. So Jazakallah, guys, we'll stop there. Just before moving forward to Hamza, I know you've been waiting for your bit, because you like coming in for the allegation stuff every 2 weeks. Just got told to promote this quickly, the book, The Great Western Revival, which is by Beloved Huzur. So you guys, if you haven't done it already, this thing is still on pre-order. Kashif, I think you can say a bit more on it, because I've already done it, but I think you're more in a position to promote it. So Kashif, you can say something. Are you there?
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu Kashif.
Okay, like Morbi Saab said, this is the book by the current Khalifa, and we're trying to get lots of people to buy it so we can reach the bestseller book. So this is the instruction that we're given from Marcus, that we want as many as people to buy, so we can reach to the level as bestsellers, authors, and best-selling book. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Jazakallah.
Yeah, so I think it's 20th of this month. So Akash, if you can just post the link on the chat. I think if you haven't done it now, it's just $4.99, and definitely going to be worth the read. So I can't wait for that to come out as well. So you go, Jazakallah. Jump over back to Hamza. Hamza, over to you, man.
Ruby Saab, can do it next week if you want, man. Yeah, I was listening to Sabur talk, man. I don't want to listen to myself talk now.
I can hear him talk all day. Much less. I wanted to bring him in, but yeah, we want to hear you talk as well.
You're just gonna bore everyone after Sabur's talk, man.
Nah, that's good, man.
Okay, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. So again, just recapping from the God Summit, which was obviously that took place a couple of weeks ago. One thing that a lot of the Murabbiyan stressed was about the idea of prophecy, and how it's one of the most powerful proofs of the existence of God, i.e. someone foretelling something years before it happens, and reason tells you it can't be by coincidence or chance, and then that event occurs some point later in time. And looking more recently, after the time of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, one of the most powerful proofs for the truthfulness of the Prophet ﷺ was the plague that took place in the Punjab from 1898 to about 1906, 1907. So just the background, I know from books and stuff that we've been through, a lot of this is familiar knowledge to everyone, but just really briefly, As we know, at the time of the Promised Messiah, before his claim to be the Imam Mahdi and the Promised Messiah, a lot of his work was infamous in a positive manner around Qadian, around India in that time, especially his first few volumes of Brahim Ahmadiyya. And many scholars of the time prior to his claim published a lot of praise and admiration for him, especially people like Muhammad Hussein Batalwi and a few others as well. Then when he made his claim that Jesus alayhi salam had died a natural death and that he was spiritually the second coming of Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, overnight that positivity, that fame turned very negative. And then those who praised him became his enemies, his objectifiers, and his name became quite negatively maligned and vilified throughout India. And then throughout this time, we know thousands of revelations that the Prophet ﷺ received with warnings to those who disbelieve and to those who oppose him, so to speak. One such warning again was related to the plague, and this is the initial warning came just after 1894 when the eclipse of the sun and the moon happened. And this is the beginning of the prophecy. I think I've said it before previously, and I think in his own words, a warner came unto the world, but the world accepted him not. Yet God shall manifest his favor and demonstrate his truth with powerful assaults. This plague, which I'll go into in a second, is also prophesied in the Quran as well. It shows the truth of revelation. And, transfer of knowledge from the unknown to the known. Cool. So this is the verse we're talking about. So from chapter 27, verse 83, and when the sentence is passed against them, we shall bring forth out of the earth, which shall wound them. I think it's because people did not believe in our signs. So just background, Dabba refers to all animals, so any life form from the smallest to the largest, anything that moves along the earth, basically. Many Muslim scholars and commentators after the time of the Holy Prophet ﷺ all sort of said that this prophecy will relate to the time when the Imam Mahdi will appear in the world. These are just some examples of those scholars. Ismail Haqi al-Baruzwi Sahib, he stated that the Mahdi would come and that the Dajjal would appear followed by the Messiah. During this time, Dabba, i.e. that insect, that animal, will emerge, and after that the sun will rise from the west. Another scholar as well related again to this prophecy at the time of the Imam Mahdi. So 1898 was the first revelation of the prophecy about the plague, and it was published by the Jamaat al-Hakam and a few of the newspapers at that time about how this impending doom will occur across India, but especially in the Punjab. And that this calamity, the Prophet ﷺ explains, is related to this insect, this animal that crawls on the floors of the earth. And then to the bit about tukallimu, it also means two things. One is to wound, and the other is to speak. This animal which will bite. So we know it was an insect bite that causes these things for having rejected the signs of Allah and rejecting the Prophet ﷺ. This was the prophecy itself. Angels of God are planting black trees in different places of the Punjab. These plants are very ugly, black, frightening, and stunted. I asked the person planting these trees, what kind of trees are these? He replied that these were plague trees, which was spread in the country very shortly. So again, just a bit of background, 1894 was the eclipses of the sun and the moon. 1897, the plague started in Bombay. And at that time, healthcare workers and doctors said that it had been well controlled and there would be no problems with the plague. Then it broke out in 1898, and doctors again assured everyone that it was well controlled and there would be no problems. Again, Prophet ﷺ disagreed with this, and we know from history that this devastation continued for approximately 7 to 9 years. Qadian specifically, obviously, was the village of the Prophet ﷺ, and he said that it would strike everywhere in Qadian, all the villages in and around the Punjab, but it would not enter the four walls of the home of the Prophet ﷺ. And the prophecy was, I will save all who dwell in this house. This doesn't just mean the physical house, but obviously the spiritual house, i.e. all of the Jamaat, all of those true followers of the Prophet ﷺ. But there is a bit of footnote. So Ahmadis who weren't doing the true ibadat in the sense of following the 10 conditions of birth, some Ahmadis would still suffer. But the comparison between non-Ahmadis versus Ahmadis who would suffer would be between night and day. It'd be incomparable. It'd be far less deaths from Ahmadis versus those who weren't a part of the Jamaat. And again, those opponents, those enemies of the Prophet ﷺ, they would challenge him, saying that he would actually die of the plague. But one by one, all of those who made these accusations, they would all be stricken by the plague and they would all pass away. Again, I'll get to the stats later, but there's a massive, large margin between, even in the mixed villages, between those Ahmadis who survived and those non-Ahmadis who survived, and there's no comparison between the two. And in some villages, you get to some extent that only Ahmadis were able to actually bury those people who were dying from the plague, because other people, non-Ahmadis, had literally been wiped out from those villages, from those areas. And despite fear of contracting the plague, because obviously even when the people had passed away, they were still infectious. You could still catch the plague from those people. The Ahmadis would continue to do this job of finding the dead, putting them in the coffins and burying them, because they had such conviction, such faith from Islam, that they wouldn't contract the plague from these people. One example was Maulvi Muhammad Ali Saab. He was actually an Ahmadi, and he suffered really bad symptoms of the plague, sweating, fever, swelling of various glands around his body. And then he tried various medical aid, and there was no effect of this aid. He was in great agony. He was very worried, more than anything else, that Allah had almost seen him as maybe not worthy of being a proper Ahmadi, because he'd obviously accepted the Jamaat, but he was still suffering from the plague. So the Prophet ﷺ was made aware of his quite negative, his bad condition at the time. So in that time frame, again, put yourself in the picture where everything's so infectious and contagious at that time. The Prophet ﷺ went to his house, went to his home, and he looked after him at that time and reassured him that he would not die of the plague. In that same instance, Muhammad Ali Saab, he made a rapid recovery. The temperature that he had subsided, and he made a miraculous recovery. He went on to die years after, when he was 77 in 1951. So it just shows that even by his hands, we see it a little bit with Hazur as well. Even by the touch of the Prophet ﷺ, he led to miraculous recoveries for some of his followers. It's a bit difficult for those who will ask for the best sort of evidence, because we know all the witnesses were either Ahmadi versus non-Ahmadi at that time. You had the Christians, the Hindus, the non-Ahmadi Muslims who were very much against Prophet ﷺ in India. So they will ask, where's the non-Ahmadi sources? Where's the evidence there? But the best evidence you can really give in favor of the Jamaat is that at that time there was a lot of negative anti-Ahmadi press. So any sort of falsehood, any deception made by the Prophet ﷺ, by any of his newspapers, any of the followers, Al-Hakam at that time, and a few of the newspapers, if they record anything false, you can be certain that those who opposed the Jamaat wouldn't have excused that, and they would have raised a lot of awareness and public negativity around any false information, misinformation by Ahmadis and by the Prophet ﷺ. Any incorrect coverage would have been the critics wouldn't have ignored it, basically. So, and also the Prophet ﷺ, he kept reminding people of the prophecy that he and his Jamaat, his true followers, would be protected. And various people, again, were in the middle of mubahalas with the Prophet ﷺ at that time, so prayer duels. And throughout that period of 7 to 9 years, they would all, one by one, they would all pass away from the plague. But again, the Prophet ﷺ and his family and those in the Jamaat, they remained safe from the negativity of the plague. And with all the articles and all the awareness he was publishing, those who opposed him would continue to pray against him and oppose him, do what they could to try and malign him, but there was no success to any of this. I think the best evidence that Khalifa Rabi puts, that in that period of 7 to 9 years, there's no single line or piece of evidence in any publication or article against the Jamaat saying that anything that Prophet ﷺ had said was false or incorrect, because you can be sure that any sort of falseness in anything that was said would have been made headline news, especially in India at that time. Again, in the Ahmadi press, it's a similar sort of thing. They would record all the deaths of all the people, and they would keep accurate records of Ahmadi numbers of people who had died in villages. And again, there was no comparison between the few Ahmadis who died versus the non-Ahmadis, many of whom were basically passed away very rapidly in that time. I think that in itself is reasonable evidence for any neutral person to say that there was a stark difference between non-Ahmadis and Ahmadis in terms of the statistics. Another proof is the rapid growth of the Jamaat in those years. So figures were again reported by Al-Hakam regularly, and from that period of about 7 to 9 years, in 1902, the number of Ahmadis has risen from about tens of thousands to around 100,000. 1904, we're looking around 200,000 Ahmadis, and 1906, it had surpassed about 400,000. So all in all, that in itself, I think for an open-hearted, reasonable person would see that's a massive increase in a time where people were just dying in the numbers every single day. And then from another perspective, if you think, if the Prophet ﷺ, if his prophecy was false, then any Ahmadi at the time would have seen that his claim was false, that people in his family died, that people in the Jamaat died, and that would be a proof of his falsehood. And then any growth in the Ahmadiyyat would have stopped, and people would have left the Jamaat rather than running towards it. And then just coming towards the end now, again from chapter 32, verse 22, in that surely are signs for people who reflect. So again, that verse from the Holy Quran, which talks about dabba, that insect, that animal that walks on the floors of the earth, it's a miracle in itself. Think about 1400 years ago, no one at that time had any idea about the reason for the spread of the plague. They were aware that there would be some sort of calamity around the time of the Prophet ﷺ, but no one knew about the causes of it. They had no knowledge about rats, about infection, about bites, about fleas, which were actually the carriers of the disease, and that the bite of the flea would actually inject that virus into the bloodstreams of people. So again, this is for reasonable people. If the Quran was authored by a human, it wouldn't be possible that they could have predicted that the spread of the plague would have this specificity that would be done by the bite of an animal classified as the dabba 1400 years before it happened. We know now again that this animal, it was an insect, that it was the flea that was the cause of this. And again, this was prophesied in the Quran 1400 years ago. And the only question really to people opposing this prophecy, is it likely to be by accident? And if you're thinking statistically, it's very, very unlikely. So there was just a really quick run through from it. Jazakallah guys for listening to it again.
Jazakallah, Hamza. Really, really good. Very detailed. It wasn't quick, but it was.
Tried to do it quickly. Tried to speed through.
It's almost impossible to do these topics quick because it's so detailed, but you could run through a lot of it. But yeah, Hamza, we're kind of through all the God's Summit topics, so one by one we'll get through them. Hopefully bring people closer to Allah, not further away. Inshallah. No, really good job, mashallah guys. We're going to come to an end now, so we'll save Kahoot for next week, inshallah. Just want to end by telling everyone about the event which is happening in about 10 minutes. Human Rights and Justice for All, one event held by Birmingham West Jamaat, inshallah. We'll be inviting a lot of mayors around the West Midlands, around the Midlands in fact. So it'll be good. So it's happening in 10 minutes. So if you guys are ready and you're free, you can by all means join in. So Jazakallah guys, inshallah we'll catch up next week. I really appreciate everyone coming and joining in. Really good discussion today, and good allegation corner as well. Jazakallah Hamza, Jazakallah everyone for joining. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Take care, son.
Assalamu alaikum.
Take care.